Yesterday afternoon, the Miami Dolphins beat the Denver Broncos 70-20 in the third highest scoring game of all time and the highest scoring game since 1966. In total, they had over 700 yards of offense, threw for 376 yards, and ran for 350 yards. They had two running backs that had four touchdowns in Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert. This team is making a case for why they are the most dominant team in the AFC, and I can definitely see them coming out of the AFC to go to the Super Bowl this season. Other teams in the conference have faltered at times, with Buffalo losing to New York in week one of the season without Aaron Rodgers for most of the game. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs have looked good in this last game, but have faltered in the first two games of the season, losing one to Detroit in week one, and then in week two, only scoring 17 points against Jacksonville. And Cincinnati is off to an 0-2 start, and we'll see if they can get it going in week three on Monday Night Football. But in all honesty, we'll have to see whether those teams can recover. But Tua Tagovailoa and this Miami Dolphins team have looked amazing. On Sunday, they forced three turnovers on defense, and while their offense is going to be the story of this game, scoring 70 points, which it absolutely should be, their defense also came in clutch, forcing the three turnovers, as I mentioned, and getting a sack on Russell Wilson. And when both units are firing on all cylinders as they were yesterday, this team is a very hard team to stop. Tua Tagovailoa had 309 yards passing through three quarters, and then Mike White came in and threw for another 67. Devon Achane had 203 yards rushing on 18 attempts and 2 touchdowns, then also had 4 catches for 30 yards and 2 touchdowns. Raheem Mostert had 13 carries for 82 yards and 3 touchdowns, and then 7 catches for 60 yards and a touchdown. Both of them had over 40 points in fantasy football, for all of you fantasy football nerds out there. And for the season, this wasn't just a one-off thing. Tua Tagovailoa is second in all yards, and he could have easily been first if he was left in for the fourth quarter of this last game. Raheem Mostert is fifth in rushing yards, and Devon Achane is not far behind him. Tyreek Hill is second in receiving yards, and if he had been in for the end of the game as well, he could have had a lot more yards as well. And this team is just looking so good and hitting its stride right now. And I think as they can kind of pick up their chemistry a little bit more, and as they settle into a real groove, I think this team could be a real championship contender as the season goes along. Mike McDaniels is a great coach, and he's able to balance being aggressive with being a little bit more conservative. We saw coaches be too aggressive this week in Brandon Staley for the Chargers going for it on 4th and 1 from his own 29 with under 3 minutes to go, and almost costing them the game when they were up 4. And we also saw teams be too conservative, like the Raiders kicking a field goal down 8 with only a couple of minutes left in the game. So Mike McDaniels has impressed me with not only his play calling and the X's and O's part of the game, but his clock management and his team management as well as they've gone through this season, and as they've gone through different game scenarios, knowing when to be aggressive, knowing when to be a little bit more conservative in different aspects of the game. Tua Tagovailoa has also proved a lot of haters wrong, and in this game he had 309 yards, as I mentioned before, and 4 touchdowns, and he's developed a really strong bond with Tyreek Hill, who had 9 catches for 157 yards and a touchdown. Tyreek Hill, sitting at around 400 yards right now, is on pace for over 2,300 yards. And the most impressive thing about this passing offense to me from yesterday is that Miami was without Jalen Waddle, who was their second target on offense and is arguably a number 1 guy if Tyreek Hill wasn't there. So without Jalen Waddle in that offense, they were still able to put up 70 points and over 370 yards of passing offense. Tua Tagovailoa has been a very good game manager when he has to be, and he's also been able to take the shots down the field to Tyreek Hill and to Jalen Waddle, and has led them to an impressive streak to start the season. They beat the Chargers 36-34 in the first week, and their chemistry looked really good in that week as well. And Tua was able to lead a game-winning drive late in the fourth quarter with about 3 minutes left. And during that game, he put a perfect back shoulder ball to Tyreek Hill in the end zone. And then last week they beat the Patriots on Sunday Night Football 24-17. That game was a little bit more sloppy, but they were able to come out with a win. Last year's Dolphins team, if they had played a little bit sloppier than normal, probably wouldn't have been able to pull out a win as they did last Sunday. And then obviously they come into this week and just demolish the Broncos. They won by 50 points over a team who was talking a lot of crap before the game started. And Sean Payton has actually called for Tua to be benched even as recently as last season. And it must feel real good for the Dolphins to be able to kind of quiet him down a little bit and beat a team that traded a first-round pick and a second-round pick for a coach and traded a lot of assets for Russell Wilson. And now the Dolphins are just beating up with them. And one thing that concerns me about Denver, I know this is off topic, but something that concerns me about Denver is that last year their defense was their calling card, and this year they have been horrendous defensively. Obviously, they just gave up 70 points to a Dolphins team without Jalen Waddle. But that's what concerns me about the Denver Broncos. But in terms of Miami Dolphins, this team is looking great. They have it all. They have coaching, they have offense, as was shown on display yesterday. Their defense has been lights out this season, other than the first week against a really solid Chargers offense. And I'm really excited to see kind of where this team can go. Compares to the other teams in their division, the Jets started out with Aaron Rodgers and had really high hopes, but obviously Aaron Rodgers is lost for this season, and the Jets haven't looked the same without him. Buffalo is obviously going to be a challenge for Miami to get past, but as of right now, they're sitting a game ahead of Buffalo, and while it still is early, Buffalo has had their falters. They've won their last two games pretty convincingly, but week one against New York, they didn't look great. And New England, the Dolphins have already beat New England, and New England is in a bit of chaos right now. Just Mac Jones doesn't seem to be the quarterback that people thought that he was going to be. So I think the Dolphins have a very good opportunity to win this division. And outside of their own division, the AFC looks strong, but doesn't look as strong as it has been throughout other seasons. Even Jacksonville, who was supposed to be an up-and-coming team, lost this week to Houston and lost pretty bad. So I'm really thinking that Miami has proved to be a championship contender and has proved to be relevant enough to be in conversations for an Super Bowl appearance coming up this season. So I'm really excited to see where they can go this season, and I think that they are my AFC pick right now for a Super Bowl appearance. And if we were to see a Miami versus San Francisco Super Bowl, I would not be surprised, and that is actually my prediction for the Super Bowl come February, is San Francisco and Miami. So I would love to see that matchup. Two high-powered offenses, a lot of star power on offense and a lot of star power on defense, and two great coaches of Mike McDaniels and Kyle Shanahan going head-to-head in the Super Bowl. Obviously, we're a long way off from that as of right now, but I think that would be an intriguing matchup come February. God bless you all. I hope you have an amazing day. Let me know what you think of the Dolphins and what you think of the Broncos in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to hit 100 subscribers as soon as possible, and I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by next April. God bless you all. I hope you have an amazing day.